The Forgotten Protocol. The control room of Deep Space Station Epsilon hummed with the quiet precision of monitoring equipment. Commander Elena Reyes sat at her station, eyes scanning the holographic displays that tracked traffic throughout this sector of the galaxy. 6 years stationed at this remote outpost had taught her patience, but even Elena sometimes longed for something to break the monotony. "Commander, I'm picking up something unusual." Lieutenant Sato's voice cut through her thoughts. Elena moved to his station. "What have you got?" "Distress signal, extremely urgent. It's coming from Proxima Outpost." Elena felt her heart skip. Proxima Outpost was a small mining colony established by the Trevini, gentle crystalline beings who had been among the first alien species to welcome humanity into the Galactic Confederation. "Put it through," she ordered. The holographic display flickered, and the panicked face of a Drogani elder appeared. Their crystalline features were cracked with stress, light patterns pulsing erratically across their surface. The Drogani equivalent of terror. "This is Elder Krill of Proxima Outpost. We are under attack by unknown vessels. Our defenses have failed. The attackers, they're harvesting our people. Please, anyone, we have children." The transmission dissolved into static. "Get that signal back," Elena commanded. "I can't, Commander. It's gone." Elena's blood ran cold. "Show me the sensor readings from that sector." The display changed to show the Proxima system. Strange vessels orbited the small outpost moon. Their design was unlike anything in the Confederation database, organic-looking ships with hulls that seemed to absorb rather than reflect light. "Magnify that image," Elena said, her voice tight. As the image sharpened, she saw it, the distinctive pattern of energy signatures that matched descriptions in humanity's classified archives. "The harvesters," she whispered. "Commander." Sato looked confused. "Send this to Confederation headquarters immediately. Priority Alpha." Within hours, the Galactic Confederation Council convened an emergency session. Elena attended via holographic projection, standing at attention as representatives from 22 species debated. "We cannot rush into conflict without proper investigation," insisted Councillor Desra, a tall, willowy representative of the Morgian Alliance. "By the time we complete an investigation, there might be no one left to save," countered Admiral Zhu, Earth's representative. "The Proxima system is beyond our rapid response capabilities," said another counselor. "Our closest battle group would take 6 days to reach them." "And how many will die in 6 days?" Zhao demanded. The head counselor raised a hand for silence. "We will vote tomorrow after analyzing all available data." Elena watched Admiral Zhou's hologram storm out of the council chambers. The debate continued, but she had stopped listening. Elena knew what she had to do. Back on Epsilon Station, Elena entered her private quarters and sealed the door. From a hidden compartment beneath her desk, she retrieved a small device, a quantum encryptor that couldn't be traced or monitored by Confederation systems. She entered a series of codes known to only a handful of human officers. The device hummed to life, establishing a direct connection to Earth's deep command. "This is Commander Elena Reyes, authorization CRS-7 Delta 9. I am initiating Protocol Sentinel." There was a long pause, then a gruff voice responded. "Verification confirmed. Protocol Sentinel requires justification, Commander. The harvesters have returned. They're attacking Proxima Outpost. The Confederation is debating while people die." Another pause. "Understood. Deployment authorized. Coordinates." Elena transmitted the data. "The Council doesn't know I've contacted you." "They never do, Commander. That's the point of Protocol Sentinel. Thank you for your service. Earth will respond." The connection terminated. Elena sat back, her heart pounding. What she had just done violated at least 12 Confederation treaties. If discovered, she would face court-martial and imprisonment. Earth itself could face sanctions. She didn't regret it for a second. Beneath the surface of Europa, Jupiter's ice-covered moon, massive doors opened in a facility that didn't exist in any official record. The facility extended kilometers below the surface, hidden from Confederation inspectors and satellites. Fleet Admiral Kendra Washington stood in the command center, reviewing the data from Commander Reyes. Her weathered face showed no emotion as she pressed a red button on her console. "This is not a drill," her voice echoed throughout the hidden base. "Authorization. Sword of Damocles. Deploy the Phantom Fleet." Alarms blared as personnel rushed to their stations. In hidden docks, massive warships hummed to life. Vessels whose existence violated every arms limitation treaty Earth had signed upon joining the Galactic Confederation. On the bridge of the ESS Nemesis, Captain Alejandro Vega watched as his crew prepared for deployment. At nearly 3 kilometers long, the Nemesis was 5 times larger than the largest Confederation dreadnought. Its hull was composed of metamaterials that absorbed scanner signals, making it nearly invisible to standard detection systems. "Engineering reports all systems green," reported his XO, Commander Fatima Rahman. "Weapons primed. Drive core at optimal capacity." "What's our target, sir?" asked the tactical officer. "Proxima Outpost. Harvester incursion." Vega's voice was grim. Everyone on the bridge fell silent. They all knew the stories, the classified histories that weren't taught in schools. "Time to deployment," Vega asked. 8 hours at maximum burn, sir." "Make it 6. Push the engines to emergency protocols." "Sir, that exceeds safety parameters by—" "I know exactly what it exceeds, Lieutenant. Execute my order." On the Confederation headquarters station, Admiral Zhao was awakened by a priority message from Earth. As she read it, her expression changed from surprise to grim satisfaction. She immediately requested an audience with the head counselor, who reluctantly agreed to meet her despite the late hour. "What is so urgent it couldn't wait until morning, Admiral?" the head counselor asked, irritation evident in his multi-tone voice. "I just received word that Earth has mobilized a humanitarian response to the Proxima situation," Zhao said carefully. The head counselor's compound eyes narrowed. "The Council has not authorized any action. With respect, Counselor, Earth doesn't need the Council's authorization to send humanitarian aid." "Humanitarian aid," the counselor repeated skeptically. "And what form does this aid take?" Admiral Zhou maintained a neutral expression. "Medical ships, evacuation vessels, the standard humanitarian package." It wasn't entirely a lie. The Phantom Fleet did include medical and evacuation ships. It also included the most devastating warships humanity had ever built. "I see," said the head counselor. "And these vessels are already en route?" "Yes, Counselor. They should arrive at Proxima within 6 hours. "That's impossible. No Confederation vessel could reach Proxima in less than 6 days. Admiral Zhou smiled thinly. "I never said they were Confederation vessels, Counselor." Back on Epsilon Station, Alina received an encrypted message. "Package en route. ETA 6 hours. Hold position." She knew what it meant. Humanity's secret fleet was coming. Lieutenant Seto approached her station. "Commander, all Confederation channels are buzzing about some kind of Earth response force heading to Proxima. Do you know anything about this?" Elena kept her expression carefully neutral. "I'm sure Admiral Zhao is handling the situation appropriately. But how could Earth vessels reach Proxima so quickly? It doesn't make sense." Elena turned to face him. "Lieutenant, sometimes the official specifications of ships aren't the whole story." "You mean Earth has been hiding capabilities from the Confederation?" His voice was barely a whisper. "I mean that humanity has learned the hard way to be prepared for worst-case scenarios. Sometimes that preparation requires discretion." 6 hours later, at the edge of the Proxima system, space itself seemed to tear open as the Phantom Fleet arrived. 7 massive warships, led by the Nemesis, decelerated from speeds that Confederation scientists had deemed theoretically impossible. Captain Vega stood on the bridge, studying the tactical display. Sensor report: 11 harvester vessels in orbit around Proxima Outpost. They're systematically destroying the colony's infrastructure and extracting the population. Vega's jaw tightened. Life signs. Approximately 3,000 colonists still alive, concentrated in the southern hemisphere. They appear to be in underground shelters. There's also a Draveni defense vessel still operational, though heavily damaged. It's protecting civilian evacuation ships. So we still have people to save. Vega opened a channel to the other ships. This is Captain Vega. Formation Delta. Nemesis will engage the main enemy force. Retribution and Vengeance. Take the flanks. Mercy and Sanctuary. Move to support the evacuation. Justice and Redemption. Establish a perimeter. He turned to his weapons officer. Prepare all kinetic weapon systems. No energy weapons. They'll just absorb them. Rail guns charged, sir. Missile tubes loaded. Launch scout drones. I want to know what we're dealing with. Small unmanned craft shot from the warships, racing toward Proxima and transmitting data back to the fleet. The images that appeared on the main display made Vega's blood run cold. The once thriving outpost was now a burning ruin. Strange, insectoid ships hovered over the main settlement, extending tendrils down to the surface and pulling colonists up. They're not taking prisoners, said the science officer grimly. According to these readings, they're extracting biological material and neural patterns. The colonists aren't surviving the process. Vega had seen enough. All ships, battle stations, launch fighters. Let's show these bastards what happens when you attack those under humanity's protection. Throughout the massive warships, red alert klaxons sounded as crew members rushed to their posts. Weapon systems powered up, and hundreds of fighter craft launched from concealed bays. The harvesters detected the human fleet and immediately broke off their attack on the colony, turning to face the new threat. They're charging weapons, reported the tactical officer. Evasive maneuvers, Vega ordered. Fire railguns, all batteries. The Nemesis shuddered as its massive railguns fired, sending tungsten projectiles hurtling through space at a significant fraction of light speed. The enemy ships tried to dodge, but 3 smaller vessels were hit directly. Instead of absorbing the attack like they did with energy weapons, their hulls cracked open. Direct hits, the weapons officer reported. Vega nodded. As we suspected, they can absorb energy, but kinetic impacts still work. Keep firing. The battle was joined. Shields of humanity. The harvester ships retaliated immediately, strange energy beams lancing out toward the human vessels. The Nemesis rocked as a beam struck its shields. Shield strength down to 78%, reported the defense officer. Their weapons are unlike anything we've encountered. Roll the ship, Vega commanded. Present our strongest shields and keep firing. The massive warship rolled in space, a maneuver that should have been impossible for a vessel its size. The Confederation engineers who had secretly joined the human crews watched in amazement as complex combat maneuvers were executed with practiced ease. Fighters swarmed around the larger enemy vessels, firing missiles at weak points. Some were shot down, but many more got through, causing damage to the organic-looking hulls. The Vengeance is taking heavy fire, reported communications. Captain Lin reports shield failure on their port side. On the tactical display, Vega watched as the Vengeance positioned itself to shield the civilian evacuation ships, taking hits meant for them. Tell Lin to hold position, Vega ordered. We're coming to support. The Nemesis fired its main engines, accelerating toward the Vengeance with frightening speed. As it passed an enemy vessel, it fired all portside railguns at point-blank range. The enemy ship's hull tore open, atmosphere venting into space. Suddenly, the remaining harvester ships began to pull back from the battle. They're retreating, said the tactical officer. No, Vega corrected, studying the tactical display. They're regrouping. He pointed to new contacts appearing on the long-range sensors. The main fleet is coming. The tactical display showed dozens more enemy ships approaching. Get those civilians to safety, Vega ordered. We're about to face their real attack. The human fleet regrouped near Proxima's moon. Engineers worked frantically to repair damaged systems while medical teams treated the wounded. On the bridge of the Nemesis, Captain Vega studied the tactical display showing the approaching harvester fleet. 27 capital ships and over 60 smaller vessels, reported the tactical officer. They'll be here in 2 hours. Commander Raman looked at the display with growing concern. Even with our weapons advantage, those numbers, we've faced worse odds, Vega said, though his expression was grim. Status of the evacuation ships. 80% of the surviving colonists are aboard. The Dravani defense vessel is coordinating with our medical ships. A communications officer interrupted. Captain, we're receiving a transmission from Confederation headquarters. Vega sighed. Put it through. The holographic display flickered to life, showing the head counselor and several other members of the Galactic Confederation Council. Captain Vega, the head counselor's voice was cold. You are in command of vessels that violate multiple Confederation treaties. Explain yourself. With respect, Counselor, I'm a bit busy preventing a massacre. These ships, their size, their weapons, they exceed all agreed-upon limitations by factors of 10 or more. Yes, Vega agreed simply. They do. Why would Earth build such vessels in secret? Because we've encountered the harvesters before, Vega said quietly. The council members exchanged glances. That's impossible, said one. The harvesters are a myth, stories told to frighten children. They're no myth, Counselor. 200 years ago, before we joined the Confederation, they attacked our colonies on Mars and Ganymede. Thousands died before we drove them off. We learned then that conventional weapons were useless against them. And you kept this information from the Confederation. We tried to share it. Admiral Zhao interrupted, stepping into view. Our reports were dismissed as exaggerations or misidentifications. The Council wasn't interested in threats that hadn't attacked Confederation worlds. So you built these abominations. The head counselor gestured to the human fleet. We built what was necessary to protect not just humanity, but anyone who might face the harvesters. Zhao replied, as we're doing now. The conversation was interrupted by an alert. Captain, the harvester fleet has accelerated. They'll be here in 30 minutes. Vega turned back to the council. I suggest we continue this discussion after we've saved what's left of Proxima Outpost. The head counselor looked like he wanted to object, but another counselor, a Dravani, placed a restraining hand on his arm. Save our people, Captain, the Dravani counselor said. We can debate treaties later. The transmission ended. Vega turned to his crew. All ships, battle formation Omega. Prepare for engagement. The human fleet spread out in a 3-dimensional formation designed to maximize crossfire opportunities. Fighter squadrons took up escort positions around the evacuation vessels. All evacuation ships, prepare for emergency jump to designated coordinates, Vega ordered. We'll hold them off as long as possible. The harvester fleet appeared at the edge of the system, their dark ships moving with eerie synchronization. They're approaching in attack formation, reported the tactical officer. Energy signatures indicate they're charging weapons. All ships, fire at will, Vega commanded. The human fleet opened fire, rail guns and missile batteries launching a devastating barrage. The front line of harvester ships took heavy damage, several breaking apart under the onslaught. But there were too many. The returned fire hammered the human ships, shields flickering under the strain. Shield strength down to 42%, reported the defense officer. Hull breaches on decks 17 through 22. Emergency force fields holding. The battle raged for over an hour. The human fleet fought with desperate courage, but they were outnumbered and gradually being overwhelmed. The Retribution has lost engine power, communications reported. Captain Corey is ordering abandonment. Vega watched grimly as escape pods launched from the stricken vessel. Have the Mercy pick them up. What's the status of the evacuation? Last civilian ship is jumping now. But the Dravani defense vessel's drive is damaged. They can't make the jump. Vega made his decision. Move us between that vessel and the enemy fleet. We'll cover them while they repair their drive. The Nemesis moved into position, its massive bulk shielding the smaller Dravini ship. Enemy fire concentrated on the human vessel, hammering its weakened shields. Shields failing, the defense officer reported. We can't take much more of this. Just as it seemed the end was near, space rippled at the edge of the system. A Confederation battle group emerged, the fastest ships in the fleet, pushing their engines beyond safety limits. "This is Admiral Krell of the Confederation Navy," came a new voice over the comm. "We received your distress call and came as quickly as we could." The fresh ships joined the battle, their weapons targeting the harvesters with precision. The tide began to turn. "Captain," the science officer called out, "I'm detecting energy buildup in the enemy flagship. It's unlike anything we've seen so far." "Evasive action," Vega ordered, but it was too late. A massive energy wave erupted from the harvester flagship, washing over the battlefield. Human and Confederation shields alike flickered and failed. "All systems down," shouted the engineering officer. "We're dead in space." Vega watched in horror as the harvester ships began to close in for the kill. Without power, they were defenseless. But then, something unexpected happened. The Dravini defense vessel, the ship they had been protecting, moved between the Nemesis and the approaching enemy. Its crystalline hull began to glow with inner light, and it broadcast a signal on all frequencies. The harvester ships hesitated, then began to pull back. "What just happened?" Vega demanded. The science officer studied her readings in amazement. "The Dravini, they transmitted some kind of signal. I think it's a warning." "A warning?" "Sir, I'm receiving a transmission from the Dravini vessel." The view screen showed the crystalline face of a Dravini elder. "Captain Vega, we owe you our lives. What you don't know is that the Dravini encountered the harvesters millennia ago. We developed a specific resonance that disrupts their hive consciousness. We've just broadcast that signal, along with a warning that we've shared this knowledge with all species in this sector." "They're retreating," the tactical officer confirmed. "All harvester vessels are breaking orbit." As power gradually returned to the human ships, the full scope of what had happened became clear. The Phantom Fleet had revealed itself to the galaxy, but in doing so, had saved thousands of lives. 3 days later, aboard Confederation headquarters, a special session of the Council was convened. Captain Vega, Admiral Joe, and Commander Reyes stood before the assembled representatives. "Earth has violated numerous treaties," the head counselor began. "The penalties for such violations are severe." "With respect, Counselor," the Dravini representative interrupted, "had Earth not violated those treaties, my colony would now be extinct." Murmurs of agreement spread through the chamber. "Perhaps," suggested another counselor, "it is time to reconsider our defense treaties in light of this new threat." "And perhaps," added Admiral Joe, "it is time for the Confederation to listen when its members try to warn about dangers beyond your experience." The head counselor looked displeased, but nodded slowly. "A committee will be formed to investigate both the harvester threat and appropriate revisions to our mutual defense agreements." As the formal proceedings concluded, the Dravini counselor approached the human officers privately. "My people owe yours a debt we can never repay," he said. "But I am curious. Why did you build such a fleet in secret, rather than simply leaving the Confederation when your warnings were ignored?" Commander Reyes answered, "Because humanity doesn't just fight for itself anymore. We fight for all who cannot fight for themselves." The Dravini's crystalline features shimmered, their equivalent of a smile. "The galaxy has much to learn from humanity, it seems." As they left the council chambers, Vega turned to Zhu and Reyes. "So what happens now?" Admiral Joe smiled. "Now the real work begins. The Confederation has finally recognized the threat, and humanity's role in facing it. And the Phantom Fleet?" Reyes asked. "No longer Phantom," Zhao replied, "but still humanity's shield, for ourselves, and for all who stand with us." Around them, Representatives from dozens of species watched with new eyes as the humans passed. For the first time, many understood what they had gained when humanity joined the Confederation, not just another member species, but protectors who had prepared for the worst while hoping for the best. The harvesters would return someday. But when they did, they would find not just humanity waiting for them, but a united galaxy, prepared and ready to defend all life together.